Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of TED Excellence, the show where every day is a school day. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday, tempestuous Thursday, the day before the end of the month. So I hope everybody's having a good month. And those of you that have to deal with billing and invoicing and all that fun stuff, I do. I know I do. But before I get into the regular stuff, I have a special thing to bring up. If you'll direct your attention to the top of the chat box, there are the requisite GoFundMes and fundraisers up there. But, however, there is a third one there tonight. It's a special one with a kind of a deadline. So a friend of Twisted Skipster is in dire need of help in order to simply keep their electricity going. And apparently they need to have at least $300 some odd by midnight tonight East Coast time just to keep the lights on. So if you go check out the links at the top of the chat box and click on that third link. So as of right now, there's $30 in the pot, so to speak. And if you have any dollar you can spare tonight, or if you can share this out on social media elsewise, greatly appreciated. This one's a bit of a emergency situation, so if you have the ability to help out, it would be very much appreciated. I will check in on that as the show goes on, but that's where that is, so please take a look at that when you have the opportunity. And best of luck to Skipster's friend in this effort, because apparently the deadline is midnight tonight, or the lights go out, which is no good. That's no good, as Sonic used to say. But again, I'll check on that later. But who's joining me this evening before we get into the main event, as it were? Why, that would be Derek LaRue. Hello. And before I get any further, thank you, Derek LaRue, for your always continued generosity and support. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And likewise, thank you, Keeverdam, not only for being the show's den mother of sorts, but also our consistent fundraiser link provider, because my memory goes out the wayside. And thank you so much for your generosity. And I made sure to put your tweet, I want to say tweet, your comment up at the top of the chat box before the show started. So thank you again so much for everything that you do. I hope you're doing good with the new job restrictions and all that fun stuff. Elsewise, Twisted Skipster, hello. Noah Asensio, hello. Dr. Funkenstein's Ghost, hello. Random American, hello. Who else is here? Shady Grin, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. And Portmanteau, hello. JMK, hello. All the regulars here. Who else is here? Shell D, hello. Gen T Maxi, hello. And let's see. Looking. Absolutely Degenerate. Cephtus Wolf. Resolute Germ, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Super Koopa TV, hello. Pink Hollow, the Driving Ape Man, hello. And Megan Ring, hello. Oh, man, the chat just jumped because, of course, it did. Spoonie the Rebel, hello. And Mike R, if I didn't already say hello, hello. Miranda Stone, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. And I think that's everyone. I hope so, as my voice goes up a couple of extra octaves. You know, sort of like who I'm suddenly thinking of. Oh, you know, that's Roy Orbison. That's what I'm thinking of. Supposedly he could get like 8 octaves in his voice. That's the rumor. I think that's the myth. I don't know if that's true. Probably true. Angelverse, hello. Pissed Off Shih Tzu, hello. Jeanette E. Hellas, hello. Cartographer, hello. Green Badger Outdoors, hello. Simon Willikins, hello. You're Ridiculous Lunatic, hello. And is that everyone? I hope so. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, hello. Hope I'll get a chance to say hello by the time the show ends, with some comments from you for the bingo card. The bingo card tonight, by the way, is bingo card B. B as in Batman. Sure, why not? If you'd like to join in on the poll each week to select the bingo card, you just have to follow me there on Twitter, scribe_light. But B was the winner of the 3 academies I put on the poll. There was the Colonial Fleet Academy from Battlestar Galactica. There was the Jedi Academy from, well, Star Wars, and then Starfleet Academy from Star Trek. Jedi Academy won, and so now we have bingo card B, so get your bingo cards ready. Links are in the description. Tonight's selection, diversity in academia, combining 2 of my favorite topics, education and, I would assume, aspects of DEI, but maybe I'll be surprised. I'm always happy to have surprises. Perhaps it'll talk about actual, diversity of thought, diversity of merit, diversity of ability. One can hope. Hope springs eternal. That spring is sometimes a sewer treatment plant, but you never know. Hey, gotta strike while the iron's hot, I suppose. Scribe is finally going through puberty. Yes. Would you like some fries with that, sir? I'll get some fries with that. But Cynic, hello. And Ostzan, hello. So with that, this one is a lengthy one. This is a nearly 20-minute long presentation, so let's get right into it. I had to clean up the audio a little bit. I had to boost the volume and clean up the background just a bit, so I think it's pretty good. But let's start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
All right. Back in North Carolina.
You guys hear that all right? Let me know in the chat real quick. I'm always a little worried that I hit the wrong button or I didn't set things up correctly. 'Tis sound and vision, says Advocatus. And 5x5 says JMK. All right.
Yeah, shout out to Littleton, North Carolina, Halifax County, for people that don't know. Whenever you go to fill out an application now to teach at a university, you have to fill out a diversity statement.
Oh, yes, the diversity statements. I've covered that before in a previous stream. I forget exactly the context, but yeah, you have to now this is me giving my baseline understanding. I don't know what our speaker is going to say. My baseline understanding is that in addition to just your basic cover letter of, here's my information, etc., you have to provide a statement about your background, about how you've overcome problems, or how your race and or gender and or orientation and or economic status or something else affected your life, etc., that kind of thing. But they call it a diversity statement. So yeah, I think that's what it is.
The institution is basically asking you, what are you going to do to support the diversity in your classroom?
Is that what it's supposed to do? Okay.
How are you going to bring in all of these different voices into what you do? What do you bring?
I would think that's the admissions department's responsibility, right? Like, you teach the subject, they get the students in, and then they need to take the classes for the prerequisites to get their degrees. Okay.
To this esteemed institution to help us increase the number of opinions, the diversity.
Of opinions? Okay, well, if you're talking about opinions, you're talking about thoughts and ideas and things. Okay, I'm not sure. How would you, as the professor, attract diverse opinions?
Now, I've been in academia for a while. I just got my MFA, and now I teach at Georgia State. And I can tell you for sure, in my academic career, and most of the time, I've been the one.
The one? You're Neo out of the Matrix, or like that Jet Li movie?
The one African American in class.
Oh, I had my hopes up for a second there. I had my hopes up. Diversity of opinions. Yeah, and now. Okay, well, unless something drastically changes, everything from here on out is fruit of the poison tree. Which is funny because there's like a tree on stage.
The one Black person, the one minority. I can't tell you or begin to describe how that feels.
You're right. I don't know what I'd do if I found myself in a room and started thinking to myself, boy, oh boy, I wish there were more skin colors like me around. or something, or there's too many of a skin color I don't like around. Thank you, Kiefer Dan. People in chat said it's a little quiet. Is it too quiet? Can you guys hear it okay? I can't turn it up any louder, unfortunately. I boosted the audio artificially, and this is as loud as this sucker goes. I guess can you guys really not hear it? If you can't hear it at all, then we're really in trouble. So let me know in chat. Like, is it? I mean, he speaks low. Yeah, you might have to increase the volume. I'm sorry, guys. I literally cranked this sucker up by like 7 or 8 decibels from the original. I thought maybe I'd gotten it right, but okay. Yeah, you might have to do a little bit of self volume medication on your end. I'm sorry. Let's see. All right. Well, let's continue.
And before you think it's just Jamal, before you think I'm just in my head, I want you to know I have a podcast called Studio Noise where I talk to Black artists, all different ages, all different levels from all over the world. And we have the same conversation.
That sounds really boring.
Because their experience is so similar to mine.
Okay, so you're in a bubble on your podcast? Okay.
And when people know that I teach and know I got my MFA, they always ask me about it, about getting into art school. What is it like? And all of their questions, all of their concerns mostly come down to, do they let you be Black?
Okay. Well, I'm going to the bingo card real quick just to take a break from that. Let's go over the bingo card once to remind ourselves what we're listening for. Anecdote that probably never happened. I don't know. Do you think that those are the chief questions that people ask him? How to get into art school, and do they let you be Black? I mean, on his podcast where he's only interviewing people that seemingly agree with him, then maybe that's the case. I couldn't say. I'll leave it set for now. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No, and I'd be surprised. Systemic or institutional? We'll probably get there. Weightless example? Not yet. Word salad? No. Leaves out vital context? Not yet. Collectivizes own demographic? Yep. Circling that one. White supremacy? Not yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's either literally or implicitly given. A list? Not yet. Privilege? No. Sales pitch for product or service? No. Plays victim? Yep, so far. And circling free space as well, because why not? Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase? Not yet. Wage gap? No. Patriarchy? No. Feminism? No. Mind reading or assumes motives? Not yet. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion? Well, he said diversity, and we're kind of 3/4 of the way there, so there you go. Marginalized or marginalization? It's definitely implied. I'm going to wait and see. Argumentative, non sequitur? Not yet. Childhood or family anecdote? Not yet. Contradicts own point or argument? No. Don't know what the argument is quite yet. Benevolent condescension? Not yet. And lastly, microaggressions or unconscious bias? Not yet. So with that, so far we have collectivizes own demographic, plays victim, free space, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Remember, this is bingo card B on the links.
How much do you have to conform and give of yourself in order to be there?
I don't know. How much have you had to sacrifice?
It's sort of cognitive dissonance.
You're telling me.
Where these two different ideas are competing, because on one level, we understand the value of education. We know we need it. We want it.
Yeah.
We're doing this thing that we really love. And if I could just spend 2 or 3 years studying it, if I could just do enough intensive research, if I can experiment enough, then I could be a master.
Well, yes, supposedly. I mean, at least as compared to Joe Schmo on the street. Yeah, if you give the time and the study and the effort, and you have, professors and such that actually know what they're doing as well and can estimate your skill and retention of knowledge and mastery of the knowledge, then sure. Oh, wait, are we going to harp on the word master?
Of my fine art.
Uh-huh.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, but
to get that kind of authority
Yeah.
behind your name.
Sure.
And on the other level, at the exact same time, you think to yourself, do I really want to show up?
Well, I did that all the time in college. It was mostly like waking up at crack of dawn and going like, do I want to show up? But what do you mean by showing up?
At an institution
that
doesn't value me.
Did they take your tuition money? Are they going to give you those letters behind your name? All right. Okay. This is the point at which we need to set up our expectations for the essay. All right. How did the institution not value you? I mean, it's entirely possible. If he has some active examples, okay. But what do you mean by not valuing you?
And deal with the experience and the annoyance of having to justify who I am every single day.
Who is requiring you to justify who you are every single day? We're going to need some pretty good examples here, and then we'll have some anecdotes conceivably to assess.
In art school, we do these critiques. I don't know if you've ever been to an art critique, but you work at home, you bring it, you put it up on the board, we stand back and we look at it.
Yes, I've done many a writing class where we have to write stuff and then pass it around the classroom and have it all critiqued by my peers. That particular class was half and half. We had to do 2 stories. We had to do one about throughout the entire semester. This is what it was. You had to do 2 stories. You had to do one about love and one about death. And the one caveat was you had to work as hard as possible to avoid tropes, like simple tropes, like, oh, I was on my deathbed and I suddenly thought about this, that, you had to write 2 stories, but they had to be, you had to try to sit on those themes without falling into cliche. That was the challenge. And so throughout the course of the semester, the first half of the semester, you workshop your first story and you kept workshopping it with a peer review and revisions and readings and everything else to find something that worked. Same thing with the second half of the semester. And it was probably one of the best writing classes I ever had, but it was also one of the most nerve-wracking because, you're having everybody read your stuff and critique it. And it's one of the hardest things to have to listen to other people criticize your work. But it was also one of the most helpful things because it helped build up my tolerance for critique and try to take as much constructive information from it as I could and put it back into my writing. Take what was a good idea or a good critique or dismiss what I thought was a bad critique, but still make something out of it. Sorry, that's just a little anecdote of mine.
We talk a little bit. We write some stuff down. We tell you what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong, what can be improved.
Yes.
The whole process. Once I did a new series about Black fatherhood. It was a series of ink wash drawings. I don't do ink wash drawings. This was brand new. Experimenting, trying stuff out, exploring.
Okay.
Grad school. Having a good time. Put up my ink wash drawings and my professor wrote a note to me that said I shouldn't do what's expected of me.
So what, avoid cliche? Well, again, I haven't watched this before, so this is all very interesting.
What does that mean?
I don't know. What did he say when you asked him?
They never really explain some of these comments that they give you.
Why didn't you ask them?
But there we are in the class. And me as a Black man talking about my experiences with a Black son and a Black daughter, raising them in this world with everything that's going on, my anxieties, how I feel about it. That is not worth doing.
So you got a comment, You don't know the context of the comment. You didn't ask for explanation of the comment, but you know, okay, mind reading assumes motives. I mean, he might be 100% right? I don't know. But then apparently neither does he.
Because it's expected of me. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't either, but you've already decided that you do.
And this is part of the whole tradition of being in school, where now here I am with these amorphous, undefined expectations, these limitations on what I should and should not do.
You mean an art school? I didn't go specifically to an art school, but I mean, effectively, most of my college education was focused on creative writing and English and things like that. And so, yeah, amorphous expectations from teacher to teacher, from professor to professor, their ideas about what was a good story versus a bad story, yeah, varied wildly. Wildly. You know, I remember in one of my literature classes, we were reading Moby Dick, and I'd read Moby Dick in high school, but I had to read it again in college. And I remember that we got to like within the first chapter or two, and Ishmael is having a meal with Queequeg. And the teacher asked us as we're going over this chapter review, she said something to the effect of, "Now, what does the bowl of soup mean?" And I'm like, okay, you know, either the bowl of soup, as Freud might say, is just a bowl of soup, or Herman Melville was such a mad genius that every single object in the entire book of Moby Dick has some extra deeper meaning that's read between the lines of a cookbook kind of depths, right? Or it's just a bowl of soup. But this lady was so just obsessed with symbolism and trying to find the secret hidden language between, you know, it's like, oh, good gravy. You want to talk about amorphous expectations? Her looking at us to try to like justify her own philosophy on literature was just incredible.
That I have to carry with me for the rest of my academic career.
Wait, back up. You have to carry what with you? Sorry. Or the expectations? Yeah, well, here's the thing. Ultimately, you're trying to please the professor, aren't you? Ultimately, you're trying to adhere what the professor expects from their students for excellence or what their estimates are, what their advice is. You're always trying to please somebody else throughout your academic career because someone else is grading your papers.
I am with these amorphous, undefined expectations, these limitations on what I should and should not do, that I have to carry with me for the rest of my academic career.
And you were the only one who experienced this.
Students will tell me that when they do put up work that has to deal with race, that nobody says anything in their critiques.
I can't imagine why that might be in today's climate. I can't imagine why that might be. Can you think why that might be?
Not even the teachers.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you know why? Have you seen what has happened at major colleges over the last 7 or 8 years alone? Have you seen what happened at Mizzou or Evergreen State or what was that other one? Oberon. Have you seen what happens when someone says something sideways, a professor especially, that has anything to do with someone's race or gender or pronouns or whatever else? I think I know why that might be.
You understand how weird that is?
No, it's
because
not.
If you ever been to an art critique in an art class, you'll see how freewheeling it is. We'll literally spend hours in there talking about anything.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely anything.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about climate change.
Yay.
We'll talk about the president.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about domesticated animals in Midwestern states, how cows are a better representation than chickens. Literally, we'll talk about anything.
Cows are a better representation than chickens. Okay.
Until that black man or that black woman wants to talk about the things that are happening to them, the Black experience, and suddenly the silence.
Can you imagine why? Thank you, Kiefer Dam. Did anyone throw soup on the artwork? Yeah, there was something today. There's a video going around. It was a museum in D.C., and some climate activists were like smearing paint all over the case that enclosed a piece of art. They weren't nearly as cool as the activists in Britain throwing soup actively onto works of art. And of course, as soon as they did that, the carbon footprint of the whole world dropped by about 10%. Because as you know, defacing artwork really helps out the climate, really turns down that CO2. Okay, so Yvonne Solomon, good point. I'm confused. First he was complaining about being critiqued, and now he's complaining about not being critiqued. Yeah, I don't know what he expects to have happen here. But at the same time, like I said, in today's zeitgeist, in today's social climate, can he not imagine for a moment why it might be that in a liberal arts college, people might not want to tread on this particular subject, good, bad, or otherwise? Now, personally, I don't think that any subject is necessarily completely off limits in a college classroom, given that it's reasonable and within the confines of the subject. But that's beside the point, because if you step in the wrong direction on some of these subjects, we've seen the results.
It's definite.
Uh-huh. Well, I guess I'd wonder, and I wonder if he's going to tell us, if he did have an active conversation with a classroom on these subjects, what would he want to have happen? What would he want to be asked? What kind of critique would he accept? What kind of critique would he reject? What is he hoping to, what is he hoping that takes place if these conversations that he's so excited about were to actually happen? What does he think is missing or is lost in not having a robust conversation on these subjects?
I understand how hard that is, because that was me. I had that experience.
Uh-huh.
I know how it feels, how lonely it feels. But what I know as my older self is I realize how hard it is to actually make art.
What are we talking about here? How hard it is to make art?
I don't think people get that. I think people think that we are just throwing paint around like Jackson Pollock, just making circles whenever we feel like it, just having a good old time all the time.
Why couldn't you? Why couldn't you throw paint around like Jackson Pollock? I've seen sillier works of art go for zillions of dollars, right? Somebody just paints a canvas one tone of red and puts it up on a wall and sells it for $50,000 or something. I've seen that before. Some art is art. You can tell that somebody put some effort into it. Some art is like a true crime channel putting up a piece of interrogation footage with Wikipedia excerpts in between and calling it a true crime video. I mean, it's still a true crime video, but okay. Yeah, no, you're right. You know what's really hard? Writing. Man, I know I'm an English major. It should come to me easy, and it does in a way, but self-generating is so difficult.
It's harder than that.
Yeah. Is it?
My wife will tell you stories about how I used to work a full-time job, come home, sit at my coffee table all night long, drawing, painting, carving, printing, constantly on things that nobody ever saw.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Okay, so childhood or family anecdote. I think we technically got one earlier when he talked about his kids, but this was definitely more on point. So circling that on the board.
Just to get good enough.
Yeah.
To make the thing.
Uh-huh.
To make marks on a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
That guy can infuse with so much of myself into it. that it connects with people over time and space that I don't know, that I'll never meet.
Or it could just not make connection with anybody because it's so amorphous, it's so abstract, etc. Yeah. Yeah, I've grown up around artists. I've dated artists. I've seen the mentality of artists. And as something, and I'm not putting myself that high up on a pedestal here, as something of an artist, I suppose, in my writing and everything, I am my own worst critic or best critic, depending how you look at it. And so are most artists. Self-esteem is a rare commodity amongst real artists. And you can do a whole bunch of things, and none of them are going to be good enough to even show to the world. And yet, maybe some gem will be produced eventually. But yeah, or it'll never land. For whatever reason, you can put all the effort into becoming an NBA superstar, and you never become an NBA superstar. I could put all the effort I want to in becoming a award-winning sci-fi author, and maybe I'll self-publish on Amazon for like $0 just to get my name out there 2 years from now or something. Who knows?
That I can make these marks mean something to somebody.
Right.
Enough to sustain myself. Enough to make you feel a different type of way about your day. Art is not an easy thing to do. It's a process. I give myself to it. I have to be so open. I'm there with it all the time. I'm thinking about it when I fall asleep.
I think you need to calm down, but I know artists, so it's okay. I get it. Passion is a double-edged sword.
I'm thinking when I wake up, I can't wait to get back in the studio, to get on that thing, to make it say something. I'm so giving to it. I know how hard it is. I can't ask my students to be that vulnerable, to come in your class and face that rejection.
You can't ask your students to come in and face that rejection. Is that what I heard? Okay, well, I'm getting mixed signals as to what this talk is about. If you're talking about the struggles of artists and art teachers and the creative process and everything, I can fully empathize with that. But you were really striking home on the whole race thing earlier, and that's got nothing inherently to do with the creative process. So I just want to back up just a little bit. I want to make sure I understood him, that he can't have his students come in and get critiqued.
When I fall asleep, I'm thinking when I wake up, I can't wait to get back in the studio, to get on that thing, to make it say something. I'm so giving to it. I know how hard it is. I can't ask my students to be that vulnerable, to come in your class and face that rejection.
You can't ask your students to be that vulnerable, to come in your class and face that rejection? I'm sorry, you're gonna, if that's what he said, if that's what I'm supposed to get from that, get used to rejection in life, not just art. And just don't let it get you down, or at least don't let it make you give up.
You're rejecting who they are.
No, you're critiquing their work. And it's all opinion-based. It's all subjective because it's art. I'm rejecting who they are. No. I am critiquing product. I mean, I understand investing yourself into your art and taking criticism personally because you feel like it's an extension of you, etc. You have to get past that. You have to. In my opinion, that is a very immature way to approach your art, and especially to approach criticism. I just want to make sure, is he arguing against critique?
When you don't have the conversation, when they leave your classroom, they don't go into a different world. They're in the same world.
What?
They're bringing themselves to your classroom. You can't tell them Professor Barber talks about that kind of stuff. You should go talk to him. I'm not their teacher.
What is going on? Did I miss? I'm not being facetious here. I feel like some segment of this presentation was lost. Oh, okay. I'm not going to go backwards. I don't think that'll benefit anybody here.
You are.
What? What? Oh, okay. It might be one of the more gentle times that I'm doing this, but all the same, I don't think I can avoid it.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
I mean, I can tell he's very passionate and focused on what he's saying, but so I'm doing that. I'm also going to circle leaves out vital context because I'm completely lost as to what he's arguing for or against here, or what. What is it that people need to go talk to you about, or that? Okay, I apologize. I am going to back up just a bit. I just want to hear that one more time because I didn't understand.
You're rejecting who they are.
No, I'm critiquing their work.
When you don't have the conversation.
The conversation.
When they leave your classroom, they don't go into a different world.
When they leave is he speaking to other teachers? Is that the part that I'm missing here? Like he's speaking to like a conference of other educators? When they leave your classroom, they don't go into another world.
They're in the same world.
Uh-huh.
They're bringing themselves to your classroom. You can't tell them Professor Barber talks about that kind of stuff. You should go talk to him. I'm not their teacher. You are.
What stuff? What are you talking about? What? Okay, I'm going to just keep going. I don't know. That stuff.
It's part of your job.
Obviously, he's talking to an audience of other educators at this college or other educators in general or something. It's part of your job, what?
To be there with them.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they're in the classroom and they're the professor.
I teach because I was the one.
You teach because you were the one. Okay.
Because I was that guy.
I'm also circling word salad. I apologize for the constant pausing, but I'm just absolutely bewildered right now. Honestly, I'm absolutely bewildered.
Because I don't feel like I had all the conversations I ever wanted to have in my classroom. I teach with so much passion.
I will not deny you are passionate about what exactly. I'm still trying to decipher that part.
I do. I go into my classroom, and if you come in and all you want to do is render the human body, listen, I can tell you about how you put two contrasting values next to each other because it creates a separation, and that edge doesn't need a line because the line will flatten the space and make it more cartoony than you intended. I can tell you for sure that the midpoint of the human body is approximately at the base of the pelvis. If we use sight measuring, we can check the angles and the proportions to make sure it gets to exactly where you want to go.
Okay, well, if that's all I need to learn from the class and doing human anatomy and art and stuff, then what's wrong with that? Teaching the mechanics of it, which I can then take those tools and make my own thing afterwards. Is that not enough?
I can tell you everything. Give you all the tricks.
Yeah, well, that's purportedly what I'm paying tuition for.
About how to draw.
Yeah.
How to create.
Okay.
How to carve, how to make a print. I'll give it to you.
Well, you're not giving it to me. I'm paying for it in one form or another, and that's also your job. So
I'll spend all day with you.
Okay.
But the first thing
I
ask somebody when they come in my class
is,
what do you love?
Apple Jolly Ranchers.
What keeps you up at night?
I mean, thoughts about redheads?
If I gave you the biggest megaphone in the world, what's the one thing that you would scream out?
Okay, I'm going to save you guys your ears by not actually screaming it out. What's the one thing I would scream out? What's the one thing I would scream out? Jean-Francois, how I love Jean-Francois. No, I don't know. Now, that is a deep cut. It makes sense to Lords of the Night veterans, but to nobody else, I'm sure. Would that be the one thing I yelled out? Probably not, but that's the first thing that came to my mind for some reason.
That everybody in the sound of your voice desperately needs to hear.
That desperately needs to hear? It's not as bad as you think. People care about you, and your life is worth something. That's what I'd do.
I say that to my students, but then I listen.
Well, if you're asking questions, I would hope you were listening to the answers. What does that have to do beyond the mechanics of art that you're being paid to teach students coming into your class?
I listen to their stories.
Okay.
They tell me about how broke they are.
Well, given that arts colleges are not exactly cheap endeavors most of the time.
And how expensive my printmaking paper is.
Well, okay.
And it is. It's expensive.
But you don't mind.
But then they tell me about their parents are getting divorced. They'll tell me how anxious they're feeling because they didn't pick up enough hours this week at their job and they might be homeless if they don't give a little mercy from their landlord. They'll tell me about their sexual assaults.
Oh, okay. That escalated quickly. Okay, I don't have any money. My rent's coming due. Oh, by the way, I was assaulted. All right.
They'll tell me how they lost their best friend in a car accident. They'll open up to me.
Why?
I know their favorite songs.
Okay.
They get to play it in class. I know what they binge watched on Netflix last.
Man, I tell you what, going to an arts college must be a completely different experience than what I went through, because none of this stuff would ever happen in the schools I went to. No, it doesn't quite happen like that. But I don't know. I guess his college is fun about that. I don't know.
This weekend.
Oh, sorry. Over on the bingo card, I'm going to circle wage gap. It's kind of a wage gap between, not having enough money to live on, but also having to buy art paper at the same time.
That part of it, I want to show them, all of them, that is who you are. That, the core, is what I'm looking for. Not just the butterflies because I like butterflies. Not just mushrooms because I think the butterfly on a mushroom will be really nice. No, why do you like it?
Okay, well, I mean, at least he's, in this instance, valuing people on their ideas and their thoughts and their character, and not on their surface level appearance. I can at least get on board with that sentiment. Okay. Where are we going with this again? What was the point of this talk again?
What is it about this moment that you are going to spend so much time manifesting art?
I want to get a passing grade. Would that be an illegitimate motivation?
To do it, because it takes so long. You have to give yourself to it.
I got a question, and this is kind of a philosophical question. If somebody walks into an art classroom and they get this speech about, how long it takes to do art, and you have to put your passion into it, and etc. And if somebody just sits down and they are a complete wunderkind, right, and they belt out an absolute masterpiece in 5 minutes, right, and just from basic observation, you can see there wasn't any thought, there wasn't any prep. Maybe they were given the prompt right there in the classroom, and they just belted out, and no real effort observed in what they did. Is that bad art? Is that illegitimate art because they didn't suffer in any meaningful or observable way in doing so? Interesting thought, huh?
I know how it feels
Uh-huh.
to be the one.
Uh-huh.
And to give so much of yourself and not have it be reciprocated.
Yeah, welcome to life.
I think about
Man, these are, if we still had over dramatic or long dramatic pause on the bingo card, I would have circled it like 7 times by now.
I think about that process.
What process?
Of them being in class and how we have these conversations. I think that they need more teachers like me.
Oh, dude, don't go selling yourself so short. Holy cats.
That care. Because I want them to come into my class. They know it. I tell them, I want you to come here and make that thing that's on your heart.
Again, I appreciate your enthusiasm and passion for the subject matter. That's great. Where are we going? This is meandering. I mean, if you wanted a master class in meandering or stream of consciousness, this would qualify.
Because 1,000 people will get art degrees this semester.
Sure.
But you're you. That's what makes it special.
M-I-C, see you real soon. K-E-Y. Why? Because we like you. O-U-S-O-B. Oh, sorry.
That's what makes your art.
Yes, I am the one who makes my art. Unless AI is the one that makes my art.
And so, yes, we need more Black and minority art teachers in school.
Oh, whoa! Wait! What? Okay, so we went from you felt you were being singled out, or you singled yourself out on the basis of race. Then we went into like actual content of character, personal skill, passion, perspective stuff, individual to each student. You ask them different questions. You get a whole inside the actor's studio kind of thing going on to find out more about your students and what they're really interested in, what drives them and stuff. Like, oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. What makes your art? You. And now, why? Why do we come back to the value of color? Which was an interesting thing to ask during a speech about art. But okay, let's get to it. Why?
For sure.
Why?
I think it increases the range of the educational environment. I think I bring certain cultural things that they haven't thought about. I think I can push them in their understanding of how they can make things. For instance,
because of your skin color or your ethnicity. On the basis of that alone, you know that you have something special that they do not possess. Okay.
When I teach my intro to printmaking class.
Intro to printmaking? Was that what he said?
Most of my students don't know who Robert Blackburn is.
You're right. Off the top of my head, I couldn't say.
Robert Blackburn was the godfather of American lithography.
Okay.
His ideas and methods revolutionized how we use lithographic printmaking.
Okay.
His workshop is still open right now in New York City. They don't know who he is because it was never explained to them. Even though he worked with some of the biggest artists of the time, including a little guy named Robert Rauschenberg, who people might know.
I have no idea who that is either.
There are a couple of museums
I honestly don't think I've ever heard that name before.
that know him, a couple of books written about him.
Okay.
But Bob Blackburn was right there with him.
Uh-huh.
Now, learning about Bob Blackburn learning about Bob Blackburn doesn't lower the level of education in my intro to printmaking class at all. I think it's the opposite.
Learning about Bob Blackburn doesn't lower the... What?
It's not indoctrination that I'm trying to do to show them all these black printmakers. I'm actually expanding the possibilities of where their ideas come from.
You're not valuing ideas. Up until this point, I had no idea what the race of Bob Blackburn was, but you focused on what he did, the innovations he invented, the creations that he made, how he contributed to the art form, which has nothing to do with his race. But now you're making it about race. You so, I mean, as eloquently as an instance in this presentation so far, you elevated the ideas and the passions and the motivations of your students and never once mentioned anything about their personal aesthetic. But now we've come to a figure in the art history world that you appreciate, and you talk about what he did to contribute. Okay.
If I give you more references, change your input, I change your output, it has to be better. But more than that, that one person that's in that class, the one black, the one minority, the different one, I want them to see that they're a part of this conversation.
They're a part of the conversation because they're in the class having a conversation. What about a student that's not black or a minority? Do you not care about whether or not they feel like they're part of the conversation? Can you evaluate people on an individual basis based on their behavior, their attitude? You got somebody sitting in the back of the classroom who's not engaging for some reason. You want to bring that person in regardless of what they look like? Or are you valuing who deserves your attention first and foremost on the basis of their skin color? Because that's what it sounds like you're saying. I hope that's not what you're saying. I hope that's not how you behave, but that's what it sounds like you're saying.
That you belong in this class.
Well, I mean, if I took the class and I'm paying for the education, then I obviously belong in the class. Do you assume to think that anybody who's not white feels like an alien because you did? You wouldn't be projecting, would you?
In this institution.
Well, systemic institutional, circling that one on the board.
In higher learning, you are invested in it.
Yeah, because I'm paying tuition, presumably.
And it's not because the institution took your picture and put it on the front page of the website.
What?
It's not because you're included in all the promotional material because we're so diverse. Look at them. Happy, look at them. And you haven't talked to them at all.
Whoa, what is going on? Okay, so if your school made absolutely no reference at all to anybody, right, that wasn't white, like never on the website, never in the publications, never in the advertising materials or anything, what would your opinion of the school be at that point? What are you asking to have happen here? What is your complaint? So if the school has a picture of someone who's not white, then it's illegitimate? You're being used? I mean, it's not impossible, but then would you rather it be the opposite?
Haven't asked them how they feel.
maybe they don't care how you feel because you're a student, you paid your tuition, do they ask every white kid how they feel? What?
They should feel supported.
They should feel supported. Well, if I'm paying some tens of thousands of dollars for an art degree, I sure as heck better feel like I'm being supported. But ultimately, I get what I put into it.
And they don't.
How do you know? Okay. Did I already circle mind reading assumes motives? I did. Okay.
They should feel celebrated.
Because of their art or because of their skin color?
And they don't. That's a problem. Because they shouldn't have to feel like that. I didn't have to feel like that.
You're right. And who's responsible for your feelings? Who is responsible for your self-esteem? The operative word in self-esteem is self. And I understand. I understand being an artist and pouring your passion and yourself and your own identity into your artwork, and it's an extension of you, and then you put out into the world. I understand how scary a thing that can be and how hard a thing that can be and how it feels completely pointless sometimes. Like, everybody's writing something like this. My silly idea. It's so derivative. Like, why even bother? Or, I'm just riffing off of this artist and everybody will know it, so it's not even worth doing. I get that. Okay. But at the end of the day, either I'm producing or I'm not. Either I've decided to take the risk and just do something that might turn out to be an absolute disaster just for the sake of doing it, or I decide to hide myself. That's my decision. That's my burden. No one is putting that on me. But golly gee, that's not what's important though, right?
And so I want teachers to know that diversity starts with you being able to empathize with people that don't look like you.
Because obviously you know that people that don't look like you think completely different, have a completely different perspective on the world, are just another species as compared to me. Obviously they don't think like me because they look differently. If someone looks like me, obviously they think just like me, because I'm a racist. What the? Come on, man. You were doing great focusing on someone's passions, their backstory, their likes, their dislikes, everything that made up them as a person, as an individual, of individual thoughts and ideas and inspirations. Why are we circling back to the lowest common denominator and putting a price tag on it?
And so any excuse you give for not having a conversation is not enough to justify the rejection. You are destroying the educational environment when you don't engage all of your students properly.
Engage the students properly. By what metric? I mean, I have to guess it's race, right?
You owe it to them.
Well, I mean, I owe them an education because I'm being paid by the college and they're paying tuition, they're attending my class, and presumably if I don't have tenure, I want to keep my job. So yeah, but owe what to them? What are you asking other teachers to do specifically, and why?
To engage in a conversation.
A conversation about what? About their passions, about their ideas, about what inspires them? Or to assume to know something about their thought patterns because of their skin color?
And if you don't get it, if you don't know what it is, ask them to explain it. Just sit and listen. Just ask them to explain it. They'll explain it.
Explain what? In what context? What are you...
And if you still don't get it, go home and research it yourself. You come back and you stay engaged with them.
What?
You owe it to all of your students to teach.
What? You're not talking about teaching. You're talking about, I don't know, life coaching and personal psychological analysis. There's what?
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
Good golly, Miss Molly. I tell you, it's okay.
You owe it to all of your students to listen and make sure that the diversity statement posted on the website with their smiling picture is not just some words in a document.
It is just words on a document. What? You know, it would have helped if he had read or put up on a screen or something a copy of his diversity statement. If that's what he was going to circle back to, is like the foundation of his talk, or what was driving him in his teaching and everything, that would have been useful. But he didn't. So I still don't know, because I've like I say, my understanding of a diversity statement is, I think, primarily for the one I looked at had to deal with college admissions. I don't think I've ever encountered something where it's like a professor trying to get a job gives a diversity statement of purpose towards the classroom. I don't think I've seen one of those before. That would have been helpful.
That diversity requires inclusion. That diversity requires you to be there, because art is hard. And when they come to your class and they're brave enough to jump off that cliff, to trust themselves, to invest in their creativity, you have to tell them that I'm there right with you.
Okay, so I don't even know what to say now. I'm trying to figure out where we're going with this. I have been doing so for the last 18 some odd minutes of this thing. We got about 1 minute left, 1 minute 20. I've been trying, guys. I've been trying real hard.
That this class, will fall with you.
No. No. Challenge each other. Rib each other. Push each other to do better, or to try something different, or to get out of a funk, or to get out of a cliche. Something. Like I said, when I took that writing class, and I took it because I thought that I only have to write 2 stories in a whole semester. This is going to be easy. You know, that was kind of my first thought. And then I found out what the process was, and I was like, ooh. And again, it was one of the most rewarding classes I ever had, because, you know, writing a short story, or doing a creative writing assignment or something, to that point had been, you know, kind of a factory, you know, kind of an assembly line kind of thing for me for the most part. That class really, really, really helped. And we weren't all there. I mean, in one sense, I guess he could be right, because we were all there having to experience the same thing, right? So we all knew what we were in for, one to another. But you also understood that there was no utility to the experience if you didn't give your honest opinion on things, and you didn't give any more than was necessary. And, you know, there was a little bit of a golden rule thing going on there too. You know, it wasn't that I was holding back, but I wanted to make sure that the comments that I left on my fellow students' papers, or when I filled out the little sheet or whatever, I wanted to make sure that the comments were exact and constructive, and not too wishy-washy, and didn't just give sort of a general, you know, pat on the head kind of thing. Now, I wanted to make sure the process was as meaningful for them and as useful for them as I wanted it to be for me. So if he's talking about having to share that same experience and support one another in our critiques of one another, that they're constructive, right? Something like that. Okay, I guess I can get on board in that sense. But I keep feeling like that he's looking for one giant kumbaya circle where nobody says a discouraging word about anybody, about anything at any time, on the off chance you might diminish their passion or something, which that I wouldn't agree with, but I'm having a hard time deciphering what he's talking about.
But you won't fall.
You might fall. And if you do fall, you pick yourself up and get up again and keep going. Falling is necessary.
And I'll make sure you don't fall.
I don't want a babysitter. My teacher in that class was not a babysitter. She was not there as a golden parachute. She was there to teach, to help us think about our art and think about our ideas and try to refine our skills. Wasn't there as a inflatable mattress at the bottom of the pit.
You're going to make that thing. Because I want you to make that thing.
Oh.
Because you need to make that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope that every professor can hear this, every future professor can be a part of this, that everybody knows that diversity is so important, but diversity requires you
to not be white,
to engage,
to
enable, to celebrate, and to include every single person that comes into your classroom.
As long as they're, never mind.
And when they know that, you'll get more diversity. Your institution will improve, and everybody will be as happy as those pictures on your website. So I hope that the teachers hear that. And I hope that we start to live this diversity statements that we make. And I hope we can make diversity, true diversity.
True diversity. I would love to know what that definition is.
A reality. Thank you.
But only if the teachers are a particular color, because etc. Because any teacher that's not a particular color is obviously less inspirational, less meaningful, carries less experience or knowledge or benefit to the student. Anyway, I could go on, but I think I've already gone on long enough on that one. All right, guys, let's move on to the bingo card. I'm going to go over the bingo card one more time myself. Here's what it looks like right now. We got 2 WTFs and a whole bunch of squares circled. Might have a few more. Let's see what we have. Anecdote that probably never happened. Okay, was there any anecdote that was too perfect, etc., to be believable? The part where people ask him, do they allow you to be black or something? That one sounded a little bit off to me. But then he talked about being on a podcast where he focuses specifically on having black artists and everybody else. And so maybe that's not off base. I can't tell. That's a tough one. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No, didn't get that. Weightless example. The whole talk was just, I mean, I kept waiting for the shoe to drop on what we were talking about. So, I mean, take your pick, really. White supremacy, certainly in aggregate, if not explicitly said. I mean, it's just undeniable subtext. A list. Was there a formal list? I remember at one point he said first and then went on with something. I don't know. It didn't feel like there was like a formal list of steps or a formal list of this is the thing. Oh, well, the questions he asked his students. Yeah, you know what? And that was okay. You know what? I don't think that's too far a stretch. If you guys think I'm being too soft on that one, let me know. Privilege. Yeah, because the implication was that none of these things happen to anybody else and that he is always the one. And so, well, as a consequence of that...
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
All right, moving on after our first bingo. Sales pitch for product or service. No, I don't believe so. No, he didn't talk about anything. I mean, he mentioned offhandedly, I guess, the college he works at, and he mentioned a couple of artistic or historical figures in art, but nothing specific. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything in there that was something I like to call or something like that. Patriarchy, no, he never brought up gender, I think, throughout the entire thing in any meaningful way. Same thing with feminism. No. Marginalization. Yeah, I was the one. I was the only one. The college put a picture of me and didn't talk to me, and etc. Argumentative non sequitur. Again, take your pick. Because nothing ever really connected or landed one to another, especially when he brings up that we need more teachers, minority and teachers of color. And then he never expounded on that. Like, why? To what end? And then he went back to talking about himself, which I guess the argument was then because he's not white, he has special teaching abilities or something, I guess. Contradicts own point or argument. Well, I think Yvonne basically pointed that out early on, where he was like, he didn't want critique and then he wanted critique. He wanted real critique, but he didn't want anybody to criticize his work or something. I mean, it's a small contradiction, but it is still a contradiction. And that being said,
Bingo. What?
Of course!
Got that one. Oh, wait a second. I just spotted this. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I probably shouldn't, but podcast plug might be selling. Oh, Advocatus as well. All right. You know what? You're right. You're right. He did plug. I forgot all about the podcast. I don't know how I forgot about the podcast or him plugging the podcast. Yep. No, you got it. You got it. All right. I jumped ahead to your guys' contributions. Sorry. I'll move on. Benevolent condescension. Yeah. I hope teachers know this. I hope professors know this. And obviously, and just spouting to me, which sounded like very regressive and non-productive ideas, but whatever. And lastly, microaggressions and unconscious bias. Yeah, putting pictures in the school pamphlet and not talking to them. And it's, again, not said specifically, but highly implied in subject matter. And golly gee whiz, as a result of that.
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay.
Right?
I had a dog, and his name was...
What?
I had a dog, and his name was...
Bingo!
Of course!
Double bingo at the corner. Holy cow. And with that, I am at the end of my review of the card. If you guys have arguments for squares yet to be circled, put them in the chat now. If you put it in previously and I missed it, just copy and paste. That'll be fine. Let's see. Arguments for squares to be circled. Advocates doubly. I will facetiously say, I got my Sean Connery going. The one is a buzz phrase. No. I know you're being facetious. It's fine. It's fine. Let's see. Kiever Dam, as always, apologizing. You have nothing to apologize for, Kiever Dam. If I had that megaphone again, and go back to his thing about having the world's largest megaphone or whatever, what I'd yell at is, Kiever Dam, stop apologizing. And the whole world would know. You're fine. Just relax. You're fine. Let's see. Anything else? I'll scroll up a bit. Roger Reynolds. We see more and more they don't teach the basics of giving presentation. Well, I mean, look, and I've said this before. I automatically give a certain measure of respect to anybody who gets up on a stage in front of an audience and has to speak publicly. Talking on a microphone in my own room, etc. That's one thing. If I had to give a speech like this or try to present or something or be an entertainer on a stage, I don't know that I could do it. I probably should try it at some point, but so there's a certain amount of credit that goes to that. And again, I don't necessarily need a quote unquote perfectly constructed presentation to either enjoy or get something out of a presentation. Ultimately, I mean, if I get both well constructed and poignant and informative and or, entertaining, great. But I'll take a messy presentation that's still entertaining or informative. This one was just, I didn't know where we were. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know what the points he was making had to do with the points or things he brought up earlier. Yeah. So maybe he was just painting with his ideas, right? Sort of a rhetorical Jackson Pollock. Maybe that's what we had. I can try to be, forgiving, I suppose. Genti Maxi, right before I watched this, Scribe, I was watching responses from Egyptians to the Cleopatra documentary. Professors like this guy we really have a lack of understanding of what diversity means. Well, in the context he's talking about, and in the context we've seen it so many times before, we got diversity, equity, inclusion, etc. Diversity means discrimination. Diversity means valuing people on what they are and not who they are, first and foremost. Right. And so it's effectively just taking a different definition and putting a different word to it. Right. When I see DEI, I just sort of subconsciously now assume it's discrimination, equity, and inclusion, except that it's not really equity and it's not really inclusion. But yeah, and the Cleopatra thing. Oh man, gosh, what a dumpster fire. Thank you, Keeverdam. Fundraisers at $70. Hey, good. That's double plus. Guys, by the way, for those of you that came in late, the third link on the top of the chat box for fundraisers, Twisted Skipster's friend is just hours away from losing their electricity unless they can pay at least part of their electricity bill. And so it's kind of a emergency deadline kind of thing. If you have any dollar to spare, it certainly helps out. And so please think about donating to that, or at the very least, if you can share that link out on social media. But yeah, by midnight tonight, Eastern time, which is less than 2 hours, apparently their electricity gets shut off. So if you have a couple extra bucks, please consider either donating to it and or sharing that out. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see. Super Koopa. I can't stand this level of race realism. It's cultish and embarrassing. It just, I still don't understand. If you just switch the words around, if the guy was saying we need more white teachers in the classroom, right? Or do they let you be white or something? What would someone say to that? What would someone be right in saying to that? And what the heck does that? And that was what I've said it a couple times now. Sorry to be a broken record. That's what confused me so much about the presentation, is because he focused a good chunk of it talking about ideas and actions and merits and passion and things that have nothing to do with what you look like. You can possess those things. You can have those inspirations. You can invent and create and produce and whatever. And it's absent any other considerations about what you look like. And he even talked about valuing who someone is, what the individual is. And I was okay. And then he would circle back as though his skin color gives him special powers of thought or special perspectives that someone is going to benefit from. He abandoned individuality and then started valuing a collectivism within like a heartbeat of each other. And it was so jarring. And it was also very disappointing, because at bits and pieces during the course of this, I thought he was actually talking about real diversity, by definition, and applying to people's character, not their skin color. But then come back and put the lie to the whole thing again. Very disappointing. Alyssa Doesn't Lie says, hey, it's for horses, last I heard. Let's see. Any other arguments for squares to be circled, guys? I think we might have hit the limit. I don't know. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know that there's enough of what he talked about as far as anecdotes to say that they were too perfectly crafted. I don't think so. Self-vilification, I don't recall that ever happened. And certainly there was a lot of self-aggrandizing in there as well. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Yeah, I didn't hear anything that was particularly new. And he never brought up gender in any way, shape, or form in the course of the talk. And except for fatherhood. He did bring up, wait a second. He did bring up fatherhood. And it's not a bingo square. So little patriarchy there, I guess. Maybe a little bit. Just, I mean, literally, kind of, sort of. Okay. Just to fill out the card a little bit more, why not? But yeah, I think we hit the ceiling on that one. So yeah, there you go, guys. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 bingos. Did I do 4? I did do 4 bingos, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay, we got 4 bingos. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's more than we've had recently. But yeah, a very long, meandering, I mean, ultimately unsatisfying presentation because I wanted something more substantive, Irate Bear, out of that, but oh well. So I think I'll call it here. Again, let's go over a few things first before I close up the show. Again, please, if you haven't already, take a look at the third link at the top of the chat box to the GoFundMe to help keep the lights on for a Twisted Skipster's friend. Again, anything you can donate, because there's a deadline to this in about less than 2 hours, apparently. Their electricity will be shut off without some help. So if you guys have a ability to do that, please do. And if you have the ability to share that out on social media, please do as well. Let's see. Beyond that, programming note, it's looking like it might be early May before the next episode of Living on Borrowed Crime happens. I have scheduled to appear so far Matt Orchard and Dave's Lemonade. And Matt Orchard is currently working on his next project, which I'm very excited to see when it gets released. But he's not going to be free until he's done with that. And as you know from artists, they're usually perfectionists to a certain extent, and he wants to make sure it's just right. And so once he's done with that and has a minute or two to breathe after that much effort, because they take a lot of effort, then he and I will talk about getting the next episode of that scheduled. So look forward to that. Beyond that, the Sunday stream. Boy, I've got several things for the Sunday stream this week at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. I was going to talk about, and I might still, it might be a smorgasbord. I was going to talk about the recent announcement of the candidacy of Joe Biden to run for president again, along with Kamala Harris. But also there was some very interesting immigration news that came out today. I'm still not quite sure what to think about it. I'll have some time between now and Sunday to ponder the idea. So I might talk about that too. We'll see. And as always, you can find me here every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for another TED Excellence. And depending on what goes on with my upstairs neighbors, there might be a random live stream where I can't get to sleep. Hopefully not. Last night was absolutely quiet. It was so nice. It was, I slept the whole night through. I'm still working on a bit of a deficit from the previous nights, but there was no noises. There was no yelling or stomping around upstairs. Like, paradise. So with that, everyone, and Miranda Stone, always coming in at the last second. And thank you so much, Miranda, always for your generosity and your efforts on behalf of my channel, on behalf of the Discord. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, I almost forgot. I do have a Discord server now, of which Miranda Stone is one of the moderators. And so if you'd like to join the Discord so you can talk about stuff and things and stuff, I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. And you'll have to use the secret word in order to qualify, because if I don't see the secret word, then I and my moderators don't know that you actually watch the show. And only true viewers can join the Discord. So the secret word today is one. O-N-E. It's the loneliest number that you'll ever do. But with that, everyone, once again, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or most importantly, to the third fundraiser at the top of the chat box, please, please, please take a look at that if you could. Thank you so much for your generosity. It is appreciated more than you probably will know. And everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. Hope you have a good Friday and end of month. For those of you that have to deal with end of month stuff, I hope you have a good weekend ahead of you. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.